Get my little cheat sheet out and just say a few words. It's a heck of an occasion. I've got the red velvet curtain behind me for a nice backdrop. So, here we are. 53 years later, we just cut the ceremonial ribbon in the front. I gotta tell you, my grandkids, I'll describe those doves being released until the day I die. Never thought that would be possible. So we've accomplished all of that today. And basically now, this is the time of recognition and thank yous. I already introduced Bishop Rickle. I also want to point out our VIP table right here. We'll get to them in a second, but my architects and my builders are right here. Couldn't do it without you guys. I have my senior warden I started with when this project kicked off 7 years ago. Actually, to be fair, it was Sue, who was right on the heels of Sharon Farr. It was a transition in senior wardens, but for all intents and purposes, Sue was the senior warden that really started with me 7 years ago. That's a good biblical number, I was told. And we ended with my brother from another mother, Brian Goforth. I had it down here, but I feel like that's a perfect segue to point out for all of my senior wardens, Sharon Farr, Sue Fratt, Jason West, Brian Schweitzer, and Brian Goforth. May I say, Brian was a sucker. This is his second tenure as senior warden, but Farr is like a law firm. Farr, Fratt, West, Schweitzer, and Goforth. They deserve a round of applause. They are my senior wardens. The bishop talked about leadership. I could not have done it without my right hands. You guys could have done it without you. Thank you, senior wardens there for all that you do. Okay. Let me start with, chronologically, 7 years ago, we had various conversations around here. Basically, the genesis was Earl, Ellis, and the Wednesday guys were complaining about fixing stuff all the time. Not big-time stuff, but little stuff, which meant there was wear and tear going on. And we made the decision, instead of just tweaking stuff, we remodeled stuff. A lot of the wiring, a lot of the stuff that was put together, it showed its age. We needed to get up to code. We needed to get things safe. We needed to get things secure. And pretty much Sue Fratt said, let's do it. And I said, well, Sue, are you ready for this? She goes, heck yeah, this is nothing. She had a lot of faith. She encouraged me when, frankly, they don't teach you in seminary to take on a building project. In fact, my father vehemently warned me against it. If you can stay away from building projects as long as you're a priest, I highly recommend it. So I think I remember saying to Sue, do I really want to be doing this? And she said, basically, if we don't do it, Burrow's going to keep coming at you. So we said, let's do it. Go big or go home was Sue Fratt's original line to me. I didn't know what it meant at the time. I know it now. And she said, I can put a committee together. And here's the committee 7 years ago who went out on a fact-finding mission. They did field trips to various churches. That committee was made up of Cheryl Armstrong, Dave Herbertson, Chuck Bristol, Soren Warren, Michelle Goodwin, Gary Hatzenbeeler, Amanda Bagdanoff, Sue Fratt, Kara Urich, Dan Benj, and Paul Mabey. They went around to a bunch of churches, they kicked the tires, they asked the pastors how their remodel went, and one of the things, if I may say, that really encouraged us was our friends down the street at Columbia Pres. They said basically, just do it. Stop kicking the can. They kicked the can at Columbia Pres for like 20 years, and they finally did it, and so their unsolicited advice to us was, just do it. So we did it. Well, if you have to do something like this, you just don't wave a wand. You got to get a capital campaign team together. So we interviewed a couple of firms. We landed on the Episcopal Church Foundation with Jerry Campbell, and then I took out, I believe it was, Sue, I think it was you and Dan and Derek. I think I took you out for a beer, and I tried to Shanghai Sue and Dan and Derek to help with the fundraising aspect of the capital campaign. They drank their beer and they ate their burger, and I paid for it. and they said, we got to think and pray about it. And I said, that's fine. That's all I'm really asking you to do. Well, they came back and they said, Tom, if it's all for Jesus, we're in. I said, that's what we're doing it for. AFG, all for Jesus. And so the Capital Campaign Committee came together. Another important piece of that committee wasn't just the Holy Trinity of Frat, Benj, and Nesland, but we needed someone who had some background in publications, print, media, and Coralie Brewer was our ace in the hole. She was up in the Diocese of Spokane for the longest time. She could do PowerPoint, she could do, clip art, she could do, what's that Word document that you build like creative stuff in, not Excel? PowerPoint, yeah. Coralie helped spearhead that beautiful brochure, the triptych, the kind of with the cards, and the pledge cards were involved. So all that was put together by Frat, Benj, Nesland, and Brewer. And then we needed to, of course, procure money. The good news is we shattered all of Jerry Campbell's preconceived notions about how much this place could raise. He thought we'd only raise about $1.2 million. We went over $2 million. You guys went over $2 million of your own hard-earned money. Yes. Tremendous. I'm going to quote him. He said to Sue and I, he said, I've never seen an Episcopal church get after it in terms of the treasure like you guys got after it. And his explanation was because other Episcopal churches, they like these campaign slogans like, building on our past. That's great and all, or building for the future. That's great and all, but there's only one rock to build it on, the cornerstone, Jesus the Christ. And he said, you were so unabashedly, unapologetic about that, and it's clear to me, when you hitched your capital campaign wagon to your Lord and Savior, that's when people got generous. So thank you for that. But we still had to have another $1 million in a loan that we had to get. And basically, we asked Chris Caudill and Martin Sherrington to help with the Mission Investment Fund loan procurement, which we are happily paying off to the tune of $9,000 a month. We have money we shave off the pledge income every month that goes into that bucket, and we're happily paying that. Here's the caveat. We don't want to pay that for the next 25 years and owe another $1 million in interest. So, I'd ask you respectfully as the rector, as we go forward, as you make your will and your estate and your bequests out, make sure you remember your beloved church and leave us a little something, because actually you've had 3, maybe 4 of your fellow parishioners who have died in the last 10 years. And I get a little letter from their attorney, and I open that little letter up, and it says, Dear Mr. Rector, this person has left 6 figures, so to speak, not so to speak, actually, 6 figures in their estate to their beloved Episcopal Church. And so that's how we're going to knock down that $1 million+ loan that we don't want to pay off for the next 25 years. Thank you, Jesus. Ministry leaders who gave input in the planning. Brian, fast forwarding now, when he's now my senior warden and he's really now wanting to make sure that everybody gets input, he circled around the table. Children's ministry, Carrie Urick. Montessori, Pamela Cricht. Hospitality, kitchen crew, Diane Lingholm. Altar Guild, Darlene Peterson and Tina Henry. Ann Brown and Jennifer in the front office. Got them all around the table, listened. Sue and I also, unbeknownst to you all, we had a standing lunch date with all of our saints from Good Shepherd East. You didn't know we had a satellite campus, East County. It's also affectionately referred to as the Touch Mark. And we've got about a dozen or so saints of Good Shepherd still alive and well living over at the Touch Mark. And so what Sue and I did, again, we were on a listening tour for over a year, having lunch with those saints from Good Shepherd East once a month to hear their concerns and their hopes and their dreams. I dare say, and I know Sue will corroborate, that was a key element to this project getting off the ground. When you're not the 65th rector on the wall like I was in Pennsylvania, there's only one former guy, Bob Rhodes, and he's still alive. I'm only the 2nd rector this place has ever had. And I've got living stakeholders in their 80s and 90s who helped build this place. You saw the video. And if we didn't get their blessing, if we didn't get Bob's blessing, dead in the water. So I want to thank those saints from Good Shepherd East, because that's the generation where the greatest transfer of wealth happens to lie. And they were very generous, and they really wanted to see this project get off the ground. Thank you to all of them. Now, my VIP table. Well, we didn't have an architect, but our neighbors up the street, Stephen's Place, just finished their build. And as I admired that build from afar, it turns out a parishioner here who's very invested in Stephen's Place, in talking with them, I mentioned that's a beautiful architectural build. Who was behind that? And Michelle said, that's C2K. And then she read my mind. You want me to contact them and see if they'd be interested in this remodel? I said, that'd be nice. Well, that's how the relationship started with Kevin. Just put your hand up, Kevin. Kevin is the principal owner of C2K, architectural firm there in Portland. And he sent to us this incredible architect in his own right, Stephen Ulhauber, raise your hand, Stephen, who was ably assisted by Mariah Marshall, who has gone on to other pastors, but Stephen has held in there with us. And when they decided, and my God, I have to say to both of you present, for you both and your firm in those early days to hang in there with us church people as we kept dragging our feet. We didn't really know where we were going. I was kind of like Moses going, we're going somewhere. And the people started murmuring and hemming and hawing. And Kevin, I want you to know that your employee, Stephen, was the most gracious, positive, and here it is, patience of Job. Patience of Job to hang in there with us. He could have kicked us to the curb, but he didn't. And that relationship, as you can see, has borne great fruit. So we needed an architect and we got them, and then we needed a builder. And here's a little story for you. So Sue, maybe John, you were with her husband, but anyway, she was out having dinner. She looked over, she saw Ron Fredrickson at the next table, and she dropped her fork, and she walked over to Ron. Ron, like Kevin, is the owner of RSV Construction, and she said, hey Ron, how you doing? Good to see you, Sue. What's up? Well, what's up is we need a builder. He said, okay. Give my secretary a call. And that's how that happened. A chance encounter at a restaurant in Vancouver. They knew each other way back. Ron's family, his father started the company, and RSV stands for the three kids. Ron, Valerie, Val, or Shelley. It's the RSV, that's the children. Ron wishes he could be here. I believe he's on a beach somewhere. Cabo. Note to self, Kevin, but you just came back, so you're good. So he's doing self-care, but he's got his lieutenants here. And I've got Mel Hawkins and his lovely wife, and I've got Joel Havens and his lovely wife here. Joel, I know I'm not going to talk about them, I'm just identifying them. Raise your hand, Joel, and raise your hand, Mel. Before I transition and let Amanda come up to talk a little bit about Stephen, I just want to again, as the rector, thank you, Kevin, for putting your trust and your firm's trust in this incredible church. It has been a delight to work with you and your firm, and I'm telling you, like Michelle told me, you're going to love this firm. They're great listeners, but even better than that, they're top-notch architects. And when we look around here, I see nothing but top-notch work. Thank you for partnering with us, Kevin, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you.
Take your mask off. Good idea. Take your mask off.
Here, let me get you. Yeah, this is working kind of now, so you can just hold that up.
Clip it onto your mask.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi, everybody. Father Tom already said a whole bunch of great things about Stephen, but I just wanted to, say my absolute thanks for everything that you've done for this parish. And when you guys look around, you're seeing Stephen's creativity and his patience. That's a huge one. So again, I just wanted to thank you, Stephen.
Hi everyone. I can't tell you how much an honor it is to be here today and to actually see the life that actually lives in these buildings that we work for since 2016. So this is a very special moment for me, and I want to mirror all the thank yous that Father Tom and Amanda and a couple of people have come up. We as architects can't do this without a client who is determined to create a vision that they see is going to better their church, their community, their spirituality, and give a legacy or continue a legacy to go forward. And we can't do this without contractors that are dedicated and are craftsmen in their trades and professionals, and are dedicated to making sure that the end product is just as beautiful in 3 dimensions as our little 2-dimensional drawings and some of the obscure instructions you might put on plans. So, and it can't be done without all of you who created the vision and financially support the vision and continue to live the vision going forward. I had a opportunity when I was in school to travel to Europe and see some of the great cathedrals of Europe. And yeah, you sit there and you wonder, how was this built? And the fact that we're built over generations. And now, having been a part of that process and seeing your cathedral not only come back to life, but be set up for hopefully decades and decades going forward. It's truly a magical experience. So thank all of you, and like I said, we at CGK Architecture are just so happy and proud to be part of the 6 days.
Well, I don't talk very well off the top of my head, so I have prepared some comments. What I want to say is that in construction projects that are the size of ours, it's a standard practice for the owner of the facility under construction, and in our case, our church, to select a point person to represent the church when the builder has questions or concerns. So for various reasons, that role landed on my shoulders, but little did I know when I took this on, I'd be gaining a new best friend. Joel Havens, Tom introduced a minute ago, RSV's Construction's project manager for our remodel, probably wondered what he'd gotten himself into when he found out that it was I, who had no experience in construction projects of any kind, would be his point person. Well, I don't know how it was for him working for me, but for me, working with him was truly a blessing. Throughout our weekly meetings, frequent phone calls and emails, Joel was incredibly tolerant when my ignorance showed through. He calmly and patiently explained any and all situations which invariably would crop up and that needed addressing, presenting both pros and cons of the dilemma we had to resolve to help our team make meaningful decisions. He was always supportive of me, of our church, always kind, and always provided me with honest advice. We even had a standing joke when he would call me and say, "Brian, we have a problem." I'd say, "Well, is it going to cost thousands or tens of thousands?" And then we go from there. Well, I just want to say thanks, Joel. He was awesome. There's no other way to say it. And so, Joel, if you put your hand up again.
The project manager has to have an on-site construction supervisor that coordinates the trades who come and do their best with excellent craftsmanship to make this place the way it is. And Mel Hawkins, raise your hand there, Mel. Mel and I got to know each other quite well. coming here 2 or 3 times a week sometimes. As you know, any construction project is awash with details. You cannot imagine the quantity, the amount of decisions that have to be made on a minute-to-minute basis. And you need someone who has broad experience and competence, like Mel, to be sure that each trade is doing the right thing at the right time and with the right quality. And I have been impressed with the selection of the subcontractors by RSB. These subcontractors have a long-standing working relationship with RSB. They know that if they do a very good job, they will get more business in the future from RSB. And that relationship showed tremendously. Now, we all have to admit that anybody who does any work in a building creates a mess. If it's the demolition, there's dust everywhere. There's dump loads full of residue that we had to remove from here to clear the space to pour the concrete. You make forms, you nail them all together, and there's nails everywhere. You pour the concrete, you start building the walls, the carpenters make the dust, more nails all over the place, etc., etc., etc. The sheetrock guys, oh man, do they make a mess. Dust everywhere. And the painters just have little dribbles on the floor. That's nothing by comparison. But through all of this, each trade made a tremendous contribution, and it was coordinated beautifully by Mel and the rest of his crew, and we couldn't have done it without him. Thank you very much, Mel. I also want to acknowledge now Ron Miller. Stand up, Ron. Ron was kind of a peripheral member of our construction crew, our construction committee, and focused on the security issues that we had to build into this whole structure so that for the future we have good security, we know who's in, who's out, and we can see what's going on 24/7. And thank you, Ron Miller, for that contribution.
I don't know if you've noticed, but Good Shepherd has a new structure on our campus. It's out between the back of this building and the youth building. And what it is a beautiful new 96-niche columbarium. Getting that structure created, delivered here from overseas, and installed was no easy process. It and the concrete slab upon which it sits had to be designed, approved, and ordered. This involved having meetings with the vendor to ensure we got exactly what we wanted. And with all that was going on with remodel, I was really worried that our steering committee might miss some important details about this. But we needed someone to take over, and that person was Arlo Peterson. Arlo, could you stand?
Arlo.
Arlo's been in on the ground floor of this whole columbarium project. He's been meeting with the vendor, reviewing the drawings, asking important questions, attending to details, and keeping on top of this process. You know, his oversight was amazing, fantastic, and it saved our steering committee a ton of work and a ton of worry. So today we have this beautiful columbarium paid for by memorial donations, which will be a beautiful and meaningful place for souls to rest for eternity. So Arlo, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you'd like to go outside after we're done here, there's a niche that's open so you can see. And there's also a plaque that's on one of the niches that you can see is a possible way to put people's names on there. So please walk out and take a look. Also, if you're ever here in the evening, it's beautifully lit too. And so it's just a wonderful and beautiful, gorgeous thing at Arlo. It wouldn't be there without you. The next person I want to talk about isn't here, but deserves a lot of recognition. Because as we got closer to the start of the construction, we came to realize we had a daunting task ahead of us. We had to pack up the church and move out. Oh, sorry.
No, just hold the mic up a little bit closer.
How are we going to do this? Where would all this stuff go? And who was going to figure all this out? It turns out we did have someone in our midst who could do this and had the creativity, the brains, and the big picture thinking to sort it out. And we were really lucky when Carol Peterman said, yes, I will do this. She just got to work at once to answer the questions that I just asked. She developed a master plan of where things could be stored, calculated how much space each ministry would need to store their things, created detailed diagrams about where to put anything, and then acquired boxes for storage, and then guided all the ministries as we put things away. It was like nesting dolls or something. Things just went and fell into place, just went and fell in place. It was just perfect what she did. She regularly inspected our building to make sure we didn't leave behind anything that we didn't want to lose. And then she guided us to put it all back when we were done. But that wasn't all. The education building, the classrooms there, really took a big beating with moving stuff in there, doing the worship services over there. And so once everything was cleared out, she repaired all the drywall and she repainted all 4 of those classrooms by herself. So when you see Carol, please tell her thank you, because I think we'd still be packing up if she hadn't.
Yes, I agree. Invaluable. I want to thank, we call him Jim the phone guy. He might not be here, but Jim Halls. Mel's shaking his head. He worked closely with Jim. Jim got our telephones and our internet connectivity during the project top notch. Couldn't have done it without Jim. If you've been in the new chapel, the cross, I had 2 things I was able to railroad through in the whole project. I told Brian Gopher that I want 2 things. He said, that it? I said, just 2. So I felt like the Medici. I commissioned 2 projects that'll be here forever and ever and ever. The first one is already hanging on the wall in the chapel. I said, I want, because as I alluded to, because of OSHA, I can't have my son on the roof laying a saint of Good Shepherd to last forever here, so people can say that cross, wasn't on a boat through the Suez Canal from China, fabricated in a factory and put on the wall. The cross in the chapel was fabricated lovingly by a son of this parish named Stephen Goforth. So that did my heart incredibly good, whatever the grammar is on that one. And Stephen was up here not too long ago, and we were in there looking at it together. It was a heck of a moment for me, because he, as an acolyte, was on the altar with me, 15 years ago, and I saw him grow up here, and of course, now he dances for the Las Vegas Ballet Company. And since COVID shut them down, like all the performing artists across America, Stephen and a partner, they do woodworking projects on the side to raise money. Luckily he's blessed, his wife's a physical therapist, PhD physical therapist, but what's a ballet dancer going to do? Just sitting around and he can't dance. So he put his heart and soul into creating that cross. That cross is the exact scale replica of the brass cross in the sanctuary. I said I want a scaled down version exactly to the cross in the sanctuary. I don't want it made out of brass, I want it made out of wood. And that's the cross that Stephen delivered. The second project I commissioned happens to be another son of the parish, and he's actually sitting here next to his mom and dad. I asked Brian Dietz if he could, with his beautiful skill as an artist, create for us the Stations of the Cross, Jesus and the Stations of the Cross. Brian is especially adept at using a woodworking instrument and burning into the wood the Stations of the Cross. I believe in last check, like a week ago, Brian, he had maybe 1 panel left, and when the project is completed, we'll hang them all on the walls in the chapel, and everybody will know 150 years from now that these 2 sons of this parish contributed to this remodel. And I just want to thank Brian and Stephen right now, in absentia. Stephen in absentia, but Brian, raise your hand, Brian, you're right there. You're right there. I've seen a panel already. You will be amazed at Brian's incredible gift. And then I want to also quickly just say that while we were shut down, the grounds still needed to be mowed and kept. So, Dave Herbison and Carl Kratzer and Bill, Brian Schweitzer. Why am I drawing a blank on Bill's last name? Bill and Mari. Where's Bill? Is he here? Rickman. That's it. Rickman. Bill Rickman. So those cats kept everything nice and neat and tidy. But we also had this octogenarian couple from Minnesota who've got more energy than half of this room put together. The Lingholm, that power duo, has been banners and masks and more banners and signs and masks and kitchen and organizing kitchen and masks and banners and ribbons. Of course, those scissors I got today, Roger got them for us. So the dynamic duo of Roger and Diane, we couldn't have done any of this without you. While we were locked down, I'm bringing it home here. While we were locked down, we did go to this virtual service, which was took me into the 21st century, kicking and screaming. Couldn't have done it without my original IT guy, Taylor Thorson. He was awesome. Zach now is filling those shoes beautifully. Couldn't have done it without my man on the camera, my mother from another mother, Cleveland Rocks, Mistake by the Lake. Brian Schweitzer, he was my wife's from Cleveland, Ohio. They actually they like that term in Cleveland, Mistake by the Lake. They embrace that. And if you're a Browns fan, I don't know the score, but I taped the game, and I'm hoping you're happy with the score today. That's how Cleveland people roll. It's the Browns, and it's the Browns, and it's the Browns. That's basically what they do in Cleveland. Joel Thorson, my gosh, God Almighty. Joel Thorson, where are you, Joel? Stand up. You are something else. Pretty much, I just hired him on, and then COVID hit, and you learned on the job like a champ, and you just made all those virtual things. The music, you helped with some of the editing. You're such a rock star. We're so blessed to have you. Today, we saw your handiwork, the way you're able to assemble people from all different walks of life, and have them use their gifts to the glory of God. Joel, we're so blessed. Thank you. All the lay readers, too many to number. All the guest preachers, too many to number. But what do? We did like 59, 69. How many services we do online? It doesn't matter. Like a year and a half. And you all tuned in, and that was beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to bring it home. Whoa. Oof. Oh, man. Earl Ellis, Amanda Bagnanoff, and Brian Goforth. Earl Ellis, Amanda Bagnanoff, and Brian Goforth. What a law firm. But more than that, what a God firm. What a God firm. Earl Ellis, you should be sitting on a beach somewhere with a Mai Tai in your hand. But you brought 40 plus years of engineering expertise via the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, through Hewlett Packard, lived all over the world, speaks 3-4 different languages, tries to make a yearly pilgrimage on the Camino Santiago de Compostela. The guy is amazing. He brought engineering prowess, but more than that, a can-do attitude for a guy his age, literally living here. I would say to him, go home to your wife. What are you doing here? I gotta talk to Mel. What are you doing here? I gotta talk to Joel. What are you doing here? I gotta talk to Brian and Amanda. I gotta talk to Steve.
Gotta get the projector to work on the...
Gotta get the projector to work. I didn't want to miss this, that's why I made a note. So Earl, you were absolutely invaluable. I loved working with you many times in my office. I didn't have a damn clue what you were saying. It was all Greek to me, all that engineering talk, too many numbers. And what I really remember was we had a difficulty next to Anna and Joanne back there. That window that's pulled down, that's where you're gonna put your dirty dishes someday, right there. And Mel could appreciate this. We had an overflow problem. It was not working with the stainless steel, and Earl really troubleshot that and made it. And he came in like a peacock into my office today. It was fixed. And I just rejoiced with you because I never had to worry about it. When I know you guys had it under control, that guy, he was always the engineering mind to make doubly sure it's all under control. From the bottom of my heart, Earl Ellis, you're the rock star. Thank you very much. Amanda, where are you? There she is. Amanda, tremendous help. We needed somebody with a background in interior design from an architectural lens. And when I approached you and asked you to pray about this as a young mom with two, hope I'm not. No, not. 2 active, beautiful young daughters and a husband, right? You had a life. But you're the epitome of the next generation of young families at Good Shepherd who said, I can do this, Tom. You said yes. And you brought, really working closely with Stephen and Earl and Brian, those weekly meetings. These people every Thursday morning met. I backed out of that. I said, I can't do it all. I said, you guys, it's yours. What a gift to me. I never had to. I went to some of those meetings at the beginning. Again, I'm like, I'm way over my head. I'm just a preacher. And you guys were able to bring it home. You worked closely with the architects. You worked closely with Mel and Joel. You helped implement the design. A lot of the product and the quality of product you see around here is because of Amanda's impressive collaboration. She didn't want, to buy the most expensive thing, but she also didn't want to go with the cheapest thing. She wanted to find it right in the middle, what we could afford and what will last for the next 50 years. She had a deft eye for that. And, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're an incredibly talented woman, and I'm so glad a firm in Vancouver has also noticed that, and she is now the happy, gainfully employed mother of a firm here in town. What's the name of the firm? Am I letting that out of the bag?
Johansson Wing Architects.
Johansson Wing Architects. I'm proud to introduce their newest employee. Your mom's awesome. But you know that already. Hey, and Dave, thanks for sharing her with us. Appreciate that. I mean that. I should have said thank you, Cindy, for sharing you with us, and I know she's not here. And Mr. Goforth, I like to affectionately refer to him as Mr. G-Force. What can you say? He also should be, and is retired. I said, I need you for another year. We've got to get this thing done. He said, okay, I'm your man. We can do this with God's help. There's nobody, with all due respect to everybody I've mentioned already, and notwithstanding God and the Holy Spirit and Father in heaven, Holy Father, the Trinity. This man is a huge reason why this remodel got off the ground. Sue got it off the ground, and Brian landed that plane. And to land that plane, no small feat. He had to be here all the time. He almost pretty much lived here. Again, thank you, Janet, for sharing you with us. He met all the time with all the ministries. He was always concerned to make sure and listen carefully to their needs and their hopes and their dreams. He stepped up when we had the loan thing fall through. It didn't fall through, but we needed somebody to bird dog it. And again, he's a guidance counselor. I said, well, don't you have any actuarial, fiduciary, accounting skills? He goes, I got nothing. I said, well, that's perfect. It's perfect. You can do it. So he did. And the Lord provides. There's a lot of stuff I won't go into. We had some aha moments where we were up against it. I'll just say this. We had a lien on the property from 40 years ago. I called up to the diocese. The diocese says, yeah, you definitely do have one. I'm like, well, what's that all about? What do we do? And the diocese worked with us. They said, let me put you over to our chancellor. They got on it. They got in church. They did this. They said, we got to do one thing. There's a guy here. Okay, I'm going to tell you this one. There's a guy here. His name is Robert Schaefer. You need to get his signature. Is he still alive? I said, yes, he is. Thank you, Jesus. And I then got off the phone. I called up Bob Schaefer over there at the Touchmark. In Bob's own inimitable style, he goes, yeah, I remember that. Honest to God, he goes, yeah, it was for $20,000, wasn't it? I said, how do you remember that? He said, I have the documents. I'll have them prepared for you. You come over. Here's COVID. I'll meet you down in front of the lobby. I'll hand them over. We'll sign them. And then you can run them off the FedEx and overnight them to get the lien off so the loan people in Chicago could give us $1 million. You should see me running into that FedEx store. At like 4:55, you know, the overnight is like 5 sharp. And that lady, and she saw my exasperation and she said, come here, I'll take care of you. We got that into Chicago. They gave us that $1 million. That's just how God works. That's how a good shepherd works. And it's all because someone had to land that plane. And finally, someone just had to be my close friend through all this. Someone who can listen to my fears and exasperations and pulling my hair out and reminding me it's going to be okay, Tom. And I did that for him as well. He'd come in stressing about whatever. I'd say, Brian, take a seat. Let's say a prayer. Let's remember who we're doing this for. All for Jesus. The only reason we're getting it and we're doing it, He's just giving us the energy and the wherewithal. Brian, go forth. Thank you, and all of us say thank you. Absolutely. So appropriate. Okay. So, I have a little surprise. That's a perfect segue. I just referred to Bob Schaefer. You saw that incredible image of him in that video presentation along with Captain Jim Tompkins, God rest his soul. Bob and Sally cannot be with us. They're at the Touchmark. They're doing okay. But I hope to get them out here because they just wrote a book together and they want to do a book signing in the parish hall here in the near future. And some of the proceeds from that book they want to give to our Montessori school. They're always giving. I have finished the book. It's about that thick. The book is called Footprints of Our Lives. And without giving it away, Bob and Sally basically end their book by saying, like Paul in the epistles, all of it is rubbish. All of it. I'm paraphrasing Paul. All of it's rubbish. What matters is that I boast in the Lord. What matters is that I follow Jesus the Christ. And what matters, he says, and I'm paraphrasing the sentence, if I could say to my grandchildren, what one thing would I say? He said, find yourself a church home. Your grandmother and I found Good Shepherd 50 years ago, and before that we found St. Luke's. And when Orm Kellett, the rector of St. Luke's, called the Schaefers and a few other families to pick up their kids and to pick up everything and leave behind St. Luke's, Vancouver, to build this place, Bob and Sally said, here I am, Lord. We're taping this. I'm going to share it with them. But what I'm about to do is I'm going to unveil, for the first time, I have prayed about naming one area of this remodel in honor of our founding families, like the Schaefers. And I arrived with some help from some friends, the name Founders Hall. Ladies and gentlemen, this little plaque, officially now dedicated on this day, September 26, 2021, reveals forever and for generations to come those saints who helped start this church in 1968, who built the sanctuary behind me in 1980-81, and now in this remodel, we are naming this hall in honor of them, Founders Hall. It does my heart good to be able to pastor a church where there are living saints, original saints. And some of you are sitting here, I put the Petersons on the spot out by the columbarium. I said, you were here in 68. And Karen corrected me. She said, well, 74. I said, that's the kind of people I'm talking about. Karen, Arlo, Janet Elliott. Just raise your hands. Who are the people who got the photo op? And I want you to stand. I mean, it's worth it. Go on. Arlo. Yes. Janet over here. Janet, stand. Alice Derryberry worshipped in that original church. How blessed and lucky are we to have these living saints among us? And of course, I mentioned the Schaefers, but the list goes on. Ramona Abbott, Shirley McEnany, Ken and Billy Voss. I mean, I'm kind of lumping you all together, but that's what it's about. Okay. And last but not least, the bishop and I, and one other bloke, but he just retired from St. Thomas Medina. We're the only graduates of the University of the South in Suwanee, Tennessee, last I checked. So if I was in the Diocese of Georgia, pretty much everybody comes out of Suwanee. Or if I'm in the Diocese of Texas, you're either Suwanee or you're Austin. Well, here in the Northwest, it's me and the Bish and Lex Breckenridge up there at St. Thomas. So he knows and I know, when you go to a Suwanee football game, you know I was going to get a metaphor in here about sports. When you go to a Suwanee football game, there's a tradition. The first tradition is none of the students arrive for the game until halftime. Because, let's just put it this way with young people in the crowd. They're enjoying an adult beverage in the entire first half at some fraternity house off the campus. And then they look at their watch and then they know it's time to make their way into the stadium. So us grad students, we'd see these kids come in and it's kind of hilarious. It's a deep South thing. There's societies. Bear with me. So if your grandson goes to Ole Miss, you're tracking. If your son goes to University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, you're tracking. I know you're Northwesterners, but this is America. There's these various societies that come in and they're dressed accordingly. So there's a Highland Society where everybody comes in dressed in kilts. There's a Red Ribbon Society where all the women, I kid you not, come in dressed in like the Met Gala, like night evening gowns. It's tripping. You're in a football game and they're coming in Versace. Well, as you can imagine, when they get in at halftime, it's a tradition there. They like to scream after the alma mater this following little chant. Rip them up, tear them up, leave them in the lurch. Down with the heathen, up with the church, yea, Swanee's right. It's kind of an inauspicious prayer, but if you know your church history, the Episcopal Church, the Church of England, had inauspicious beginnings. I'm talking about Henry VIII. A better tradition is when we all gather in All Saints Chapel, and at the end of every convocation service, there's a university prayer. Mind you, this is the only, I repeat, the University of the South in Suwanee, Tennessee is the only Episcopal-owned university in America. All 28 southern dioceses, southeast, own and are proud to own and have a long history of the Episcopal Church there. There's more bishops and more soldiers and more great Episcopalians buried in that chapel cemetery out back. And we always come out of All Saints Chapel with this prayer. I remember the first time I shared it with Sue Fratt. She said, "Diggity dog, I like that prayer." And I know she has prayed this in one form or another, and I certainly have. But when you think about it, it sums up why we're all here. So the language refers to the students, but you can swap out us gathered here today. So let us pray. Almighty God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, we, thy servants, implore thy blessing upon this university, upon this church of the Good Shepherd. Give the spirit of wisdom to all those to whom thou hast given the authority of teaching. Let the students, let the parishioners, let those who come through our doors grow in grace every day. Enlighten our minds, purify our hearts, sanctify our wills. Bless all who have contributed to this church, and raise up, we humbly pray thee, a never-failing succession of benefactors through our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Put that in context, that prayer brought in over $290 million in 3 months to the University of the South. They had a capital campaign right around the same time as us. We were trying to raise $4 million. They raised almost $300 million, those crazy Southern Episcopalians, because they love Jesus down there. $300 million bucks. Doesn't matter. This ain't a contest. I want to say, and I'm done, how much I love you. I love this church. I love this diocese. I love the fact that we have raised our 3 boys in this church. You saw the little whippersnappers up there in that picture. That was the last picture they shot of me at St. John's in Pennsylvania before we packed up the U-Haul and came out here. And I want to say that this remodel is only the beginning of what God's going to do next. I have never felt more dedicated and more energized and more ready to roll up my sleeves with you guys and to bring people to Jesus and to make the world a better place. On a personal note, I want to thank Bishop Rickle, if he's still here. Is he gone?
He had to leave, yeah.
I understand that. Thank you. That's a good man. And no one knows better than he and I what it's like to do ministry in the Northwest. He's from Arkansas. And sometimes he waxes nostalgic, you know. Down there, there's two traffic jams during the week, Wednesday night and Sunday morning. I'm like, yeah, how's that going in the Northwest? He goes, not very. So we have a lot to do. The harvest is plentiful, the labors are few. But I would be remiss. My wife, what you have done to support me, not just in the past 20 months or so, but now almost 30 years. You are my partner in ministry. I know you can't do the priestly stuff, but young lady, and I mean this because you look like you're 34 years old. I'm serious. I got like a senior discount at a restaurant. They're like, what about your daughter? I'm like, yeah. Honey, I know you feel the same way. The love we have for these people, nothing can come against it. Nothing. And we saw in that slideshow the love that you all have for each other. That's all we got in this world. That's all we got. But you know what? It's the best thing we got. The church is the only hope we got in the world. And I just, again, and I want to shut up and say to my Lord and Savior, because this is what I'm talking about. Like I said a couple weeks in the sermon, I don't change the oil in your car. I don't fix your plumbing. But if you need help, I'm there for you. It's the joy of my life to be your rector. I love you, I thank you. And on that note, I feel like we can say, amen. Join with me now. Praise. I think let's just stand up. Stand up. Yeah, the doxology. This is now landing the plane, Brian. Go for it. Tom and son. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. Last but not least, the Hawks don't kick off for another half hour. Diane Lingholm, the kitchen crew, would love if you're making your way to your car, if you don't mind, could you fold your chair up? I'll make a line right now to the chair closet, and if you could help on your way to the car, we'll clean up everything else, but we'd love your help with the chairs. Those whoopee chairs, those are the original chairs from the original church.